people over with Corrections Unfiltered. Now, we have a great show tonight. We have a lot of people, so I'm going to try to get right to the subject matter. But what I do want to ask you to do is, if you like the content that we're putting out, please hit that like button. If you like the fact that we're putting these little episodes out, please do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. And remember, you can always email us at correctionsunfiltered@gmail.com, and you can take a look at us on Spotify and YouTube on Corrections Unfiltered. All right, so I got a full crew tonight. We've got Sandra Hijar-Leydon, we've got Chris McConnell, Charlie Bueno, but we also have the ARC Tactical Group. ARC Tactical is a company that caught my attention online because I was seeing this group going around and trying to make things better. So let's get into it. Hey, Tim, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you here. Do you want to go ahead and introduce your group and let us know what you guys are up to?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm lucky that I have the best team that's out there doing the work. But I'll start with me. My name is Tim. I am the director of ARC Tactical, and we started this company 2016, and the whole goal was really based off of we started in corrections and we didn't have any training. It was we're trying to jump in and figure things out, and over the years we developed systems and programs that worked really, really well. And I'm a training nerd, and these guys Josh and Tim Higgins are the same. We dove into our respective disciplines. We've become masters of those disciplines, and now we've created programs and integrated everything to really lift up the corrections field so they don't have to start like we started, right? We're trying to leap ahead there. So that's kind of the mission of the company. With me, I got Tim Higgins, who is a legend in his own respect. He's worked a couple of decades in a couple of different places, but he's also a tactics expert, use of force expert, has had the opportunity to testify on different expert cases. He's also an expert in new tools. He keeps coming back and learning new things from different companies and just making us all better. And then we also have Josh Ryle, who is my East Coast director of training, and he's got an amazing career as well in both the county jails, prison systems, and has got a ton of experience with defensive tactics and leadership training. Like, you name it, these guys, they have it. And so I'm really lucky to join their ranks and really lift up corrections as a whole around the country and in certain parts of the world too.
Well, I did notice that you have quite a database as far as different types of classes that you have, and you actually train with a lot of different agencies and things. So what was it that got you motivated to start something like this? Because a lot of people talk about starting training groups. When I get done, I'm going to do this, and it just never happens. What was it about you that got this idea and made it actually come to fruition?
And that's a good question. I would like to think that it was like altruistic values and stuff like that. Really, I got pissed off one night, really, because our patrol counterparts were always like the redheaded stepchildren, in corrections. And our patrol counterparts seemed to have all the training dollars, all the resources. And I just kept experiencing situations where they would have to come and be my backing unit, and they'd be well ahead of the game. And we'd wonder why we didn't have the resources that we needed to protect ourselves. And with that, I just started diving into different areas of training, whether it be defensive tactics or leadership or curriculum design or de-escalation, you name it, just tried to become, a jack of all trades. And it was really out of that disparity of training, patrol versus corrections, that I really knew in my heart that we needed to have somebody investing in us. And I was looking around for somebody else to do it, and there really wasn't anybody stepping up. And so I figured, why not me? And then I became that why not me by really padding all of my intellectual and physical combative skills to hone a product. Again, I'm not a one-man army. I got a great team that really fill in my gaps that I bring. And these guys are awesome. They probably have reasons for themselves for joining the team in and of itself.
Hey, Tim and Josh, of course, welcome to Corrections Unfiltered. I'm really excited about today's conversation. If anybody knows even one thing about me, I'm a huge proponent of training. I like to say recent, relevant, realistic, and ongoing training. And in my opinion, there's no better insurance policy out there in the world of corrections. My training concept is kind of simple. You're either properly trained or you're untrained, period. Is this where the professionals at ARC Tactical come in?
You're absolutely right. What we found is that you'll have some standout folks at certain agencies that because they are the minority, often have to go unheard when they're trying to champion training. There's always budgetary concerns and different things. Of course, we know on the back end, there's no training budgetary concern that is more expensive than the lawsuit that comes without it, right? And so I hear what you're saying, but our goal is really not to nickel and dime agencies. It's to really provide the best training possible at a reasonable rate, but also in a way that their people will receive and retain, right? And that's one of the biggest things. The ongoing, you mentioned that ongoing training. And so we really fill that gap up front with a lot of our classes, like our cell extraction class or our transport class or our CERT team school, which is where Tim and Josh really fill in. But on the other side, too, after they go through that initial training, we also have in service training that we run in Idaho, Tennessee, and Washington. And so we help balance that out for the agencies that just don't have a person that can carry that torch. We'll do it for you.
Tim and Josh and the other Tim is one of the things I really appreciate about your all's programs is that you don't only just do the use of force, you also go in there and you talk about the leadership side of it. And I think that's so important because a lot of times the lack of confidence for leaders to make decisions, to just simply follow a policy that outlines to you how you will go about the process, it's because they don't have a total understanding of it. And I really like the fact that you take that leadership approach and you talk to them and you let them understand exactly what's going on. That way, when you're training the people who say, hey, we're confident enough to go out and do these things, the leadership can say, and I'm confident you can, and you're confident in me to make the decisions. And like I said, policy pretty much outlines it. But when we have a lack of understanding, we are less likely to make those decisions. Josh, how did it go for you? How did you end up getting lucky enough to be a part of this team?
Um, so backtrack a little bit. I was lucky enough to attend a de-escalation instructor course with Tim and Ian, and I'd never been to a correction specific de-escalation course that long, and I was blown away by the presentation. I was blown away by the knowledge of the two that were putting it on. And I just knew that, whatever they had, I wanted to be a part of. And so I immediately went back to my agency and I started pitching their cell extraction training and their CERT training and things of that nature I wanted to bring them to Montgomery County and host an event. And sure enough, we were able to get that set up. They came out. We had several agencies send several of their folks out to represent their teams, and it was a phenomenal training. And I knew that via conversations, we had a few Zoom calls after that, that if there was an opportunity for me to be a part of this, that I wanted in. And that kind of came out of nowhere. I got a phone call saying, hey, how quick can you be in Minneapolis? And I said, I can be there tomorrow. Uh, and sure enough, the rest is history. I've been traveling with ARC now for the last 8 months, trying to hit as many corrections professionals across the country. And as far as I'm concerned, we're second to none when it comes to our product. We love our passion and our drive is through the roof. Just a little on me. My background is mine goes back almost 25 years. I started back in '01 at Middle Tennessee Correctional Complex. Spent a few years with Davidson County Sheriff's Office in Nashville, and then worked level 4 mental health prison at Lois DeBerry, special needs. So that was a special experience in itself. But having all of those different walks of all those different correction / detention type backgrounds, a lot of special team training, things of that nature, it was just real easy for me to kind of fit right in with these guys. I'll let my man there speak for himself, but Tim wasn't lying when he said that he's a legend in his own right. He's got quite the story, but yeah, so I was just happy to be a part of the team.
That's great. Tim Higgins.
It's actually kind of a funny story, and it's going to be a long time for Tim and date both of us, but I was a shift supervisor at the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, County Jail, and I saw on the training roster, it said we had training. We all had to stay over 4 hours to go to a training. And this guy walked in named Tim Fashnot that you see in front of you today. And he taught us a 4-hour block on body scanner and how to read body scans and all of that. And when we were done, I went up to him and I had a conversation about God, life, and Jesus and who he was and why he was there and how he got involved in it. And I'd been in law enforcement 20 years. I'm considered a jail rat. I spent 10 years in the prison systems. I spent 10 years in a county jail. He told me he started a company called Art Tactical. He wanted to give back to the corrections industry. I'm very passionate, very driven, highly trained. Anybody who knows me knows I love corrections and I bleed it. And so I told him straight to his face, I said, the second I take my badge off, we're going to have a conversation. What's really cool about that story was I posted on LinkedIn that I'd left law enforcement. It took him 37 minutes to reach out to me. We connected. We've become best friends. He's literally one of my ride or dies. And now we are changing the corrections industry when it comes to training across the United States of America. And just like Josh said, with our passion and our drive, we're second to none. We're bringing all these experiences and all these certifications from multiple states, bringing it into one entity. We're not the only way. We're teaching a concept to make them better and to understand and to drive corrections, because we've been underrepresented, underappreciated, and underpaid for our entire careers. So now it's our turn. It's our turn as Arc Tactical to give back to the corrections industry and give phenomenal training. And that's what we're doing. And it's growing and people are noticing because we care about corrections. And that's kind of rare because we kind of go underneath the radar and no one says anything unless it's bad. Well, now let's start talking about the good stuff and pumping out training and doing what we're doing across the United States. And it's just fantastic.
Well, I tell you what, Tim Fosnot, you're a very, very lucky man to have Tim Higgins and Josh on your team. That's a great way to bring a team together, especially with such a diverse background and the fact that you've seen it different ways. Because that's one thing I've always has always bothered me whenever I was out training with a different training group. They were looking at things from like one lens, and they insisted that you adopt their lens. And you're like, well, I understand what you're saying, but our policies don't necessarily meet up with what you're saying. But it was, well, you need to adjust to me. That just doesn't work all the time. So, taking the eclectic ideas that you all have and how you're willing to, and working together well, that means a lot. But being able to bring all those different points of view and different perspectives together, that has to give a great training environment. And I guarantee that your students are really appreciating that. So congratulations, guys, on that.
Well, hey, Tim, Josh, thank you for what you do. I'm an old timer. Did 33 years in the Bureau of Prisons. I was a peer to Chris. We were both doing time, so to speak, at the same time. And we know very well how important training is, because when we started back in the early 90s, training was a second thought. So I'd like to know now from all of you, what is your most popular component of your program? Back when Chris and I started, we're talking about the bare basics. Can you share what is right now your most popular component, or do you follow the trends and corrections and have to tweak your programs, to service the community, the corrections community?
Yeah, such a great question. I'm excited to answer it. We absolutely stay on the trends. One of the things that we are proud of is that we are the only tactical training company that works with Corrections One. So all of the feedback that they get, we get to incorporate to what we do. And we're all nerds in this. We love staying up on the latest stuff. It's something that we're kind of into. We call ourselves jail rats, and that's because we live, bleed, breathe all this stuff. And it's interesting to us. It fuels us. And so we are on the cutting edge of everything only because we like living there. But I'll tell you one of the most recent trends, and it kind of goes into what your question is. When I first started this, we were focusing on our cell extraction instructor program. What we found is it wasn't the CERT team or the SORT team doing these operations. It was, let's get everybody that we can, and we're going to go in there and see what happens. And there was no rhyme or reason to it. And we ended up we would win, obviously, but it took a lot longer. It took a lot more resources, some injuries, and some lawsuits to figure out, hey, maybe there's a better way. And so we developed that program for the average officer that can go and safely, systematically operate in that environment. But what we're finding now is that, some of the folks that have been in the game for a while don't necessarily want to be the first ones in a stack, and they still have a ton of value to offer. And so now we're having young bucks that are coming in, and we're developing cert and sort teams again. Where that was away for a little while. They got rid of them. And so now that we're developing teams, and this is what Josh and Tim can really speak to, our correctional emergency response tactics class, our cert team school, it's an instructor level school. It's a week long. We have been pumping those out all year around because we have agencies that have a huge need for it. We have willing people that want to do the job. They're showing up, and there's very limited training. Really, it comes down to it's industry or agency level training where they have come and generationally passed on information, but there's no standard. It's just, this is what we think is the right way to do things. So we have come together with Tim and Josh and developed our program that is a system, and it standardizes things without locking people into doing it one way. It's flexible enough to adapt to the situation. And so we're really proud of that product, as well as our cell extraction product as well. So
I came into the prison and corrections field, as everybody knows, later when I was in my 50s. And that was one of my big things when I came into corrections at the prison level and at the county jail was lack of training, especially in your field. It was big. I mean, if it was literally little to none. And when I went to the county jail, they actually had one of our lieutenants that held a class. So he kind of took that on. But do you find that that's most cases, that most facilities are undertrained or the training is just inadequate? And then when you guys step in and come in and do what you do you feel that your enthusiasm takes it to the next level just because of the way you approach your training? People are more receptive to it?
yeah, I have a couple of great stories that kind of highlight that. And I definitely want my guys to pitch in, but there are some agencies that are so used to not being invested in that anytime an agency starts to invest in them, there's like hesitance, right? We've probably all seen that or maybe even felt it. Recently, we did an in-service training because, again, if you're an agency that doesn't have a person to hold that torch, we don't want officers going untrained, so we will provide that for you. But we had an agency that was so skeptical about what we were doing there, they all called out sick to training. I've never heard of this before, but they all called out sick. The first one, they never showed up. And so we went, and I'm very proud of this. And I'll name drop him, my guy here in Washington State, Tim Valentine. Yes, there are 3 Tims, but he went and spent a lot of time with the agency, boots on the ground folks, explaining what we're trying to do and what we're about. The second time around, they got more buy-in, and as soon as they went to that session, it took off from there. They're one of our biggest advocates now. And so the dynamic of agencies being undertrained is so prevalent, but there's also a dynamic too where people are so used to just getting by and not having experienced what happens when that doesn't work, that they're hesitant to train. And we try to be on the cutting edge of that cycle, right? We try to be the ones leading the charge of saying, no, you have to train because the opposite of that doesn't work. You're going to get injured. You're going to injure somebody else. You're going to get sued. The ramifications for not training are so great and impactful in a negative way that we have to do it. So if we're going to do it, we should definitely do it right. And to answer your question about enthusiasm, my team has the biggest level of energy. They keep me chasing after them because they bring that enthusiasm to the game because we love what we do. I mean, you mentioned earlier, Pete, how many times have you heard people say, man, when I get out of here, I'm going to do A, B, and C. We get to do it now, right? It's fantastic. And so we bring that to our people that are still boots on the ground doing the hard work, and we honor them because, we're not in the game anymore. I mean, Josh still is, but the idea is that they are really under that pressure that we've all felt before and come out on the other side. So we get to help foster that and their love for the job and the role that it plays in the criminal justice system. But What I'll do, I'm going to pass it off to Josh because he's probably seen a ton of in-service stuff, or at least agencies that aren't used to being invested in. I'd love to hear your perspective.
So what I've seen, especially here in Tennessee, ARC is when they broke into Tennessee, it was like wildfire. Just for the fact that we weren't used to seeing somebody come in and give correction specific training. It was always a training that was more post driven, and then we adjust and pivot to make it fit corrections. What I've noticed uh, since ARC came in, and then and I'll go into it here in just a minute, talking about the Tennessee Corrections Institute conference that we were just at. The feedback from the counties is phenomenal. What I like to tell them is that our approach is a proactive approach. We are not reactive in anything we do. We are proactive. We want to solve the problems before they become problems. Now, and corrections historically has been reactive. I mean, we live and learn or live our life by our policy, our guidelines until something goes wrong, and then we got to rewrite the policy. And then we'll pivot and get some training to keep whatever incident that happened from happening again. Where if we would have been more proactive on the front end, it never would have taken place. Um, that's our approach to that. The other thing too that I think whenever you put a group of us in front of these corrections professionals is when you get a taste of me and Big Higgins here walking in the door and we're screaming, that we're jail rats rolling up in vehicles with license plates that say jail rat across the front of our cars. And, like these are guys that take true pride in what we do. And what we're telling them is it's okay for you to take pride in that as well. You represent a purpose. You have a mission and you are second best to nothing. So for years and years, I can't tell you how many times I was told that I was just a glorified babysitter or I wasn't the real police. And I'm like, man, my gosh, like, it's a wonder I stayed in as long as I did with all that motivational talk, but in reality, we're sending that different message of, yeah, you do matter. You do stand for something and take pride in that. And we're going to bring you the best that we can to help sharpen you up and, get you on track. So Higgs, you got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, Sandra and Charles, I'm going to answer both your questions in kind of a roundabout way. Sandra, the secret to our success is when we go in and we train correctional professionals, we're making them become thinkers. We've always been known, in your 30 years, we are knuckle draggers. Here's your keys, here's your OC, go handle it. Well, now we're making them actually tactically think about those situations and we're investing in them. We're making them journal and we're making them self-reflect, stuff that big tattooed guys don't normally do in front of correction COs. And everyone is grabbing a hold of it and buying in. They're feeling invested in. And when it comes to the lack of training and the reason that training never worked for years and it still doesn't, is you have the same instructor that's been at your agency for 27 years teaching the same course. Your students walk in, it's Billy Bob again. He's annoyed. He just did overtime. He's going through the motions. You bring ARC Tactical in, we're outside the box thinkers. We're there. We're investing in their time and our time. I had to be away from my family. I told them that. I'm there for them to invest in their future and the future of corrections, which I live and die for and have my entire adult life. And now I have the pleasure to work with Tim and Josh and our entire team and give back to the corrections industry and make exactly what Josh said, to make us amazing again, to bring us to that standard. Too often have we gone to defensive tactics training or any kind of training and been like, hey, this is usually for patrol, but you guys go ahead and figure it out because you're corrections and you guys will figure it out. And we've all fell victim to that. And that's how that's our secret sauce, if you want to call it, that we're coming in and we're delivering training completely differently than any other companies because we're invested in their future. We're invested in them going home safe to their family. And it's just fantastic to be a part of, to be honest.
Tim, I love that whole leadership thing. I think all of us have seen where you're absolutely right. We all went through this. It was just like, just do what I tell you to do. Here's the policy. Read it. Let's just go through the motions. And we were never trained or allowed to think, So I love this whole leadership component or element in your programs because that is so important, so important. And then the pride, Josh, the pride.
Yeah.
and how lovely, how wonderful to see that being important again.
I got a question for Josh.
Yes, sir.
Many of the ARC tactical courses are designed around use of force, defensive tactics, but as mentioned, you also provide de-escalation methodologies,
Mhm.
which are so important because if we can de-escalate a situation without using force, it's a big win-win for everyone involved.
Right.
I tell people use of force is not pretty. By its own definition, you are forcing someone to do something they don't want to do. Okay. However, if we stay within agency policy and legal bounds, supply the proper equipment, provide the proper training techniques, outcomes will be more controlled, the risk of injuries to staff and inmates are lowered, liability is mitigated. Correct me if I'm wrong, brother, but that's what ARC Tactical is all about.
Absolutely. Well, and when you look at the courses like the de-escalation and I'll piggyback another one right off of it, the creating change course as well. That's a proactive approach to officer wellness. Those two trainings kind of go hand in hand for the simple fact that before you can learn how to properly de-escalate another human being, you also got to understand that no matter what angle you come into an incident or a problem, you're a part of that problem. So having some self-awareness about what's going on with you in that high stress situation, as far as what's going on in your mind when you look at behavioral science, and you start seeing that when stress starts to rise, we start to kind of shut down and get into that fight or flight mode, where we're starting to become not um not the best communicators. For example, as officers, and then look at your clientele, your inmate clientele, you're both actually suffering from the same thing. They're high stress. They're, if especially on the detention, because they don't know what their end result is yet. They may still be going to court. They may not have bond. They may not have these things. They're also stressed because of all the rumors and things that are surrounded jails and prisons when it comes to assaults or sexual assault, things of that nature. So they are going to have their behavior from that is going to be very confrontational. It's going to be very matter of fact, challenging at most points, just so they can demand that they have some level of control. Well, the problem with that is you're going through the exact same thing as a professional too, because you are going through that high stress, the unknown. You could be assaulted, things can pop off any moment, right? So the difference in that is that if we know that we're both going through the same exact things, the difference that separates us not just from them to us is the fact that we have the knowledge now. And so we like to focus a lot on showing the changes that take place in corrections professionals the moment that you sign on. So yeah, I'm sure every one of you today would say that you are not the same person that you were whenever you first jumped into this line of work. Is that correct?
Correct.
No,
Okay.
absolutely.
So the thing is that this field, it starts to chisel away at our innocence over time. Okay. All the things that make us really amazing at this line of work contaminate every other facet of life. Okay. So having that great investigative mindset, being able to get to the bottom of the BS all the time, constantly, what you're doing is you're training yourself to seek manipulation. Okay. So when that starts to contaminate all the other areas of your life, I don't think my spouse is going to put up with me coming home questioning everything that she does, any way that she does it, because I'm constantly seeking that manipulation. It's almost like I've lost faith in humanity, and I don't believe that I can trust anyone anymore. And a lot of us do that, like even when we go into a restaurant. I don't know about you, but I'm not sitting with my back to the entrance or the exit door. I'm going to sit where I can see, and I'm prepared for what's coming in the door. These are changes that happen with us. If we can put that knowledge in these professionals' minds on the front end, how many times have we been to a wellness course and we only focus on how we die? Suicide, alcoholism, drug addiction, a divorce, all these things. We always focus on the end, but we don't really go into what got us there. We can't just blame the traumatic experiences, because the culture of corrections is what leads you there. And so if we can give them that knowledge on the front end as a proactive approach to that, that makes them the more valuable employee on the end. Because the thing that brought so much concern to me about it was when we went to those wellness classes, that was for a 30-year career. We're seeing those statistics in people with 1 to 5 years experience. They're not even making it. Full-blown alcoholism. They didn't come to us that way. So something had to been taking place along the way, and that's where we want to shine that light on there. And so when you put all of that behavior and then start adding the knowledge of de-escalation and all that, knowing where you stand in that process can help them from self-prescribing bad incidents, because I tell my guys all the time, you have the power to prescribe the end result. So for example, if you go in there knowing that you're dealing with a confrontational inmate, you go in there with a really crappy delivery, you are self-prescribing the bad incident on the back end of that. When if you would have actually gone in with some tools, you probably could have brought that down. So I think Higgins said it best, we want them to think. It's not about just going in and being able to do the physical. We want you to think deeper than the cup of coffee you're drinking. Okay. We want you to really dig in and understand like the ins and outs of what's going on with you as a person, as a professional in this line of work, because just like the military, just like the road, all of those areas come with their baggage, and we need to know how to help them carry that load instead of just focusing on the end result on the wall, which is the end of career statistics. You know what I mean?
Well, as a facility manager, you only have so much money that's in the bucket, and you've got to figure out how you can make that money spread the best way possible. And there's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made. If you belong to an agency or you belong to a company, you're going to have to go along with whatever training program that's been approved by their policies and everything. So in order to bring ARC in, I've got to be able to figure out how I can afford that and how I can make that pay off. Well, I can tell you from being the prison manager, retention is extremely difficult. There's two things that I really have appreciated about watching not only your podcast, but also taking a look at your different training programs and things that you have. You feed two things that's going to help me retain staff. One, you're going to give them the ability to communicate, because watching your de-escalation information and seeing how effective you all are, how you've thought that process through, that it's not a matter of your pride or your ego being struck down. It's about your ability to communicate and manage a situation that's very tense and trying to get it lowered down. However, if that doesn't work, now you have the ability to go through and utilize techniques and things that are going to help you resolve this situation based upon your policies and your training. If you could give that level of confidence to every new employee coming in within their first year, your retention level is going to skyrocket. Right. Because most of the time, the inmates who spend the most time with the staff members get in their brain and they intimidate them, and they do all the things that bring that fear factor into their hearts. And they say, I don't want to be here anymore because I start getting excited and I start to feel depressed. However, what you all do is you change that. You give them something that they need, and that's called confidence. That is invaluable. That is what facility leaders need to say. I am going to take this pocket of money and I'm going to make it work. And I'm going to bring ARC Tactical in because I'm going to retain staff. So at the end of the year, I'm not spending all this money on going out and doing the advertisements and doing recruitment and doing all these things. I'm retaining my staff. And every day a correctional officer comes to work, that team only gets stronger. And that's what I see you all doing for a correctional facility. And I want to commend you for it. I really do appreciate that.
Bringing somebody in to give your people confidence to feel invested in is probably the number one thing we've been lacking in corrections for everyone's career. If you feel invested in, you can make me do 12 overtime shifts. As long as you're going to send me to training at some point, I feel invested in. I'll do the overtime to cover somebody calling out sick, but I have to feel invested in. And that's exactly what ARC Tactical does. We come in and we give our time, our expertise, our experience, our hearts to their students, and they go back and it spreads like wildfire. They go back to their administrators and like, this is the greatest class I've ever had because we made them think. We changed them to a certain degree. And I only get them for 40 hours, but we can crawl into that mind and make them think about themselves differently, see themselves differently in the mirror. Like you said, giving them confidence. Because I'm going to sit here and tell you right now, if you work in corrections, you are amazing. It's all up to you if you want to be amazing and make that career amazing for you. We all did it. We created a team. We're out of the game, still doing it today. And I have a lot of pride when it comes to corrections and trying to make them feel loved and make them feel appreciated. And I agree, Pete, we need to get on the blowhorn and we need to tell everybody everywhere, administration, spend your money wisely. The jail does not need 12 patrol cars. It needs one training session over here to invest in the jail deputies when that's their main priority. Because I've seen it in multiple states, so I can speak firsthand knowledge of that happening. Where's your budget being spent? The last thing that I'll add to that, Pete, is we spend thousands and thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on instructors. And do you know what happens once you get that great guy trained up, Pete? He bounces to patrol. He bounces over here. He quits. So what's a smarter investment? Spend your money on ARC Tactical. We come in, bring in the best instructors in the industry to you, and we leave. We'll be back when you need us again later. And that's what kind of how what we're doing is working so well, because we are coming in, we're vibrant, we're new, we're rejuvenating, and we're giving them not only the administrator confidence in the decision he made to spend that budget money, but those students are now confident and they're going back and telling that administrator, hey man, Pete, thanks. Thank you. Thank you for investing in me. Even though it was my vacation time, I was totally okay with using my vacation to go to that awesome training, because that's corrections and we all know it.
Yeah. And I tell you, you know, like you said, you spend 40 hours with them. That 40 hours is going to last 4,000 hours. And then you guys come cycling back in and you pump them up one more time and you get them going, and that confidence level rise. But what you see when you see that person 4,000 hours later, you're going to see a more confident person. You're going to see a totally different person from the person you trained that first time around. Sorry, I get excited. I get emotional about this. So I appreciate you.
Pete, I want to point out too, just because you touched on it and piggybacks off of what Higgs was saying as well. You know, when you talk about, you know, having the budget dollars and delegating what training goes to where, that's interesting you brought that up, but for the fact that that was actually how we got ARC into Montgomery County. I was actually at a command presence training in Nashville, and it was a tier 2 leadership training. And of course, we had a homework assignment. Well, little did I know that my homework assignment was actually going to be to fill my own class, because we had ARC coming to Clarksville and we didn't have enough people. And so we're like 2-3 weeks away, and here we are at this command presence. So I decided to make my stand, which is what got the approval in Clarksville. And so I did. I went in, put on a presentation talking about the importance of cell extraction and CERT training for your new hires. And I can tell you, when I first said that, it left my mouth. All you could see is just gasp. You know, people are like, what? No. That, you know, we don't want to do that, because then okay. Now let's look at some of the issues that you're facing here. So you have a high retention. You need to slow that down. You know what makes people stay? Investment. When they come in, think about it. I said, how many of you have CERT teams? They all had CERT teams. How many of you have activated them in the last 6 months? None. But I bet you've done multiple cell extractions, haven't you? And they said, yes. And I said, so essentially what you're saying is your people with less than 12 months experience, no training, no investment, those are the ones handling your highest level of liability, cell extractions. And you're telling me that they don't need this? I said, look at the other problems that it solves. And so I started showing videos of team performance on point, the way it's supposed to be, not just, you know, going in and, you know, dogpiling somebody, but an actual training. I said, this is what solves your retention rate. When they come in, that's your bread and butter. Invest in them. Give them the best training you can throw at them. People who are confident and happy to come to work don't go looking for somewhere else to work. Okay. Now, look at the other thing that this solves. Look at your OJIs from all your injuries from incorrect cell extractions by inexperienced people. Now they're trained. So now they're not going to have these issues. You're not going to have those incidents where you're paying out all this money on OJI. You're solving a lot of your administrative problems by making a simple investment. We filled that class by the end of that presentation, Pete.
Yeah,
and then the rest was history, because ARC came to Clarksville. So,
well, you guys are answering my questions as I'm taking them down here. So thank you. But I absolutely agree with you. Enthusiasm goes leaps and bounds. If you're enthusiastic teaching me,
it's sticking with me. It's just great to listen to somebody with enthusiasm that is willing to step up like you guys have to help. That's
Think
great.
what got into my blood in this field was I didn't have a whole lot of structure growing up. I was a little bit of a wild child. And so when I finally, landed I was 21 years old when I started my career. But that's what back then people didn't come into my line or our line of work at 21. Back then it was mainly like retired military. They would come in, start building that second retirement, right? But at 21, whenever I go walking in this prison after I get done with the academy, they threw every ounce of training that they possibly could, and I never said no. And it was that investment that just made me super passionate about it going forward, because I thought this is the greatest thing in the world. Even though I wasn't making great money, the money didn't matter. It was the fact that I had purpose, that structure, and that it did a lot of good for me.
I want to drive a point home if I could. And that's exactly what I was saying. I want to drive a point home. Just as important, this type of quality training is the gift that keeps on giving. I'm 56 years old. I've been training for 35 plus years. I started 18 years old in the military. Then I was fortunate to be a member on the SORT team, disturbance control team, a tactical trainer, instructor in other disciplines. And all that continuous training prepared me for the position of warden at a very, very active United States penitentiary, where now I was the decision-making authority on training, on equipment, on use of force, on crowd control, on incident management. My point being, I was comfortable in my own skin and confident in making these very difficult use of force type decisions because of all of my related training.
Why do you guys think that when you're going through the academy or you're already in the field and you're being trained, why do they put your kind of training that there's not a real importance on it? They'd rather teach you how to correctly fill out a logbook, or, how do you put the key in the keyhole the correct way? Are you using the right number? You know what I mean?
I think a lot of folks think that the routine is where all the training needs to be. And don't get me wrong, that's true to a sense. I mean, yes, you need to know your routine. You need to know the importance of all the things that come along with it. But for years, what we've avoided those kind of trainings to avoid the image of, the dog pile, the excessive force issues that, have plagued our line of work for years and years. But in the end, if you don't prepare and have a training like this, and then you need it, then you're opening up a whole different can of worms. So my thing is, a lot of people will get like a defensive tactics course and they just check that box as a one size fits all for any type of force there is. That's incorrect. That nothing can be further from the truth. The second that, I'm teaching someone defensive tactics from a single perspective of being assaulted, that's one thing. But now let's put all of us on a team and we're having to deal with one individual. If we go in with a defensive tactics mindset, then we're all going to end up working against each other. And it also ends up looking really bad on camera when you're taking this guy to the ground, because you're going at it from a defensive tactics mindset, not a team dynamic. You have to train team tactics, team dynamics. Every arena has its own set of tools. And if you trap yourself, and a lot of agencies do this, they'll say, well, we got a DT program that covers all of that. No, it doesn't. If anything, it's actually opening you up to a lot more liability because you're using the wrong tools in the wrong arena. And so I think that going forward, if agencies realize when you're shopping for a training, you want to shop for a training that is specific to your needs. Okay. And if they stay focused on that, we can kind of get away from that old stigma of just having a box checked, as far as, oh, that class will cover all of that, and help us get away from that. So, yes, sir.
And to piggyback on that, Charles, to answer your question, I can answer in one sentence. That's the way we've always done it.
Yeah, there you go.
So when you go to academies It's a manual that everyone's checking the box. I can give you prime example, firsthand experience. I trained Idaho Department of Corrections in about everything they do. They still do it. That was 16 years ago. So outside the box thinking is pretty rare in corrections. A lot of states are actually going away from post academies because of that exact reason. They invest their money in their brand new people. They send them to an academy. They go through the motions from start to finish. They come back, and the first thing their FTO says to them, everything you learned at post academy, just forget it. Because now I'm going to teach you my way now, because I'm an old school guy that's been there forever. We're changing that by bringing in a different style of training and a different way of training and making them think we're not checking boxes. We're transforming their box to make them better. And it doesn't happen at the post level like it used to. In the beginning of my career, I could say it was all right. They started to shift, just like Sandra said towards the end. It started a downfall. COVID killed corrections. Let's not be honest. It killed corrections, and a lot of my brothers and sisters left the industry because of COVID. I don't even like saying that word, but it's what happened, and academies were affected by it. And I think everyone in the corrections industry is starting to understand that we need to change. It's about time that we change corrections. We can't keep going through the motions. We can't keep doing our hourly checks the exact same way with the same keys. We got to do something different. We got to seek better training. We got to make ourselves all better. And it starts from the top and goes all the way down to our brand new hires. We're hiring 18-year-olds. I just trained an 18-year-old female. She's never even punched anybody or anything. And she got a cell extraction class. She's super invested, super happy. Is this really what corrections is? I said, yeah, this is what it is. It is what you make it. And she's going to be successful now. One funny thing the captain said before I started the class, she said, Tim, please don't scare her away. You're a big bear and you're loud. I said, I will guide her. I promise. And she went back and gave 100% positive feedback and said, when do those guys come back here? Because that was awesome. And she's in the beginning of her career right now, learning, and she got to feel Art Tactical's passion, and it was awesome. It was scary for me. I have a daughter that's older than that. That was, to me, I was like, woo, corrections is changing. That's for sure. But we need to change the way we treat and train these brand new hires. We have to find a better way.
That's a great testimony. And one of the biggest hurdles that I saw trainers have to get over was they would come in and they would have a certain skill set that you'd have to be super athlete, or you'd have to have some kind of background in martial arts. You'd have to have some kind of boxing training in order just to be able to get to the start point with them. However, like you mentioned before earlier in the podcast, we were talking about the fact that when the cell extraction happens, the shift supervisor pulls the staff that he has on shift. You don't have an hour or two to wait for people to answer their phone and come on in. So they're rolling with the team they got, not the team they wish they had. So the skill sets that I was observing on the videos that you have on your website, great website too, by the way, I was noticing that your skill sets seem to be something that just about everybody should be able to pick up on. Can you guys kind of go into what you decided to go with and why you decided to do it that way?
Yeah, I can kind of answer that. So you're right. Oftentimes when you have an agency specific instructor, you can't be a rock star in your own hometown. So in order to gain that cred, you start doing some really fancy stuff that works really great for you. But I was talking about this with a buddy the other day. Training isn't just talking or showing a group of people. Training means I am taking information and I am passing it on to others. That's what it means. If they're not getting it, you're not training, you're doing it for you, right? And so the skill set that we have is the most transferable, effective, and easy to learn skills that we have. But if you go to our classes, my guess is you have probably seen something before. Like there's nothing new under the sun. We're not here to do it fancy. The thing that we thrive on is that this simple stuff has been worked into a system that flows with each other, no matter where you are at in a confrontation. And that's our benefit. So we're not trying to be fancy. We're trying to be effective. And that's one of the things that have really pushed us past some other people that have maybe attempted to do what we're doing. The other thing that I think is really crazy to me is, and you kind of talked about it, Pete, you go to a use of force class and then you go to a defensive tactics class. You have your legal, your cognitive and you have your physical. And they're very different things in a lot of these trainings, but that's not how the average person works. They're launched into a very dangerous, scary situation, and they have to do the right thing and make the right call cognitively and physically. So one of the things that I'm really proud of is not our stuff isn't just easy to learn, easy to retain, but it also works on both sides of your brain when it comes to the physicality of what you're doing. How do you do the thing that you do? But also touches on something in the same class, in the same context of why you're doing what you're doing. Because if you're just doing the thing and you don't know if you should be, that's a problem. It doesn't hold up well under court. If you're on the stand saying, I don't know, that's what they showed me, that doesn't work. So I'm really proud of all of our curriculum have those fundamentals in there of easy to learn, why, and the how.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about everything I heard tonight. I feel like corrections is one of the most complex public service professions on the face of this earth. Yet, the corrections industry as a whole is underrepresented, leaving staff undertrained. So I would like to say on behalf of all correctional professionals, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Arc Tactical. I so appreciate people like you starting a company designed specifically for the corrections community. Developing proven tactics, techniques, and philosophies that are legally and professionally sound, representing the underrepresented. Man, keep up the great work. Awesome.
I have a couple of thoughts that I'd like to share. The need for training isn't going away. Our populations are becoming more dangerous. Mental health issues becoming more prevalent. Drug addiction with the advent of fentanyl is becoming more prevalent. And so you, as an agency, it's funny. I was talking with the agency the other day that we were trying to get enrolled in one of our classes. And the person I was talking to mentioned that they were hesitant. Their admin was hesitant to because they were afraid that they were going to get injured in training. And any of those roadblocks always just kind of make me shake my head, because I would rather my people get injured in training than get injured in the field, right? If it's going to happen, but one prevents the other. So why wouldn't we do training to help solve all problems? And so I just talk about that because we're here to provide the best training experience possible, not just for corrections. We don't want to be, we're the best in the corrections category, which we are, but we are all students of the game. And so the product that we deliver out there is just next to none, honestly. And I'm very proud of my team, and I'm very proud of what we created here. But our training is for everybody, whether you're the brand new person, whether you've been around there. I'll tell you, we get reviews after every class. I just got a review that said, in 23 years of corrections work, this is the best training that I've ever been to. Man, that's moving to me, because I know what that looked like for me, and that nobody was coming to save me, right? And so all that to say is, any preconceived notion that an agency might have, any hesitancy that you might have with sending somebody to our class, any questions that you have, come talk to us. Our contact form is on the website. It's www.arctac.net. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. Our goal is to better your people, not to break them, not to drive them out of the game. We love corrections. That's what we're here for. And we're going to make your people very excited to do what they do, serve you, serve your communities. And man, we're so honored to be able to do that.
Well, for me, that's why I was very excited to make contact with you and get this podcast going, because since we started this little journey, this group of ours, we have met so many people who are exceptional professionals in corrections. And it seems as though now, especially with your podcast, Bold Move, and we have Mike Cantrell with his podcast, it seems as though the word is now starting to get out. And then there is this training group out there. And I want to make sure I say this the way it should be said. You're not just a one and gun type group. You're not just coming in, you're going to show some fancy moves, and then you're going to get out and hope you get hired again. You're actually having an opportunity to go in, and you're taking that opportunity to affect the entire mindset of employees who are probably anxious, concerned, feel as though they don't have the skill set to handle things, not only on the physical side, on the use of force, self-defense, and all that type of stuff, but also on the communication side with your de-escalation skills. I would imagine when the three of you walk in, people are saying, "Oh my God, these guys work out a lot. How am I going to be able to survive this?" But I can just tell by the way that you talk, your temperaments, and the way you go about things, you are going to make them feel as though they are superior to everybody when they get to the end of that training. And that's where we need them to be. So, Mr. Tim Higgins, your 40 hours last those 4,000 hours because that's how long we need them to last. That's what makes it the bang for the buck, is because now I know I've got training that's going to be effective over a long period of time. And I have to say, you've done it. I mean, I've never seen a group of people get together and actually formulate this idea, this concept, and then actually turn it into something that actually works. I commend you for it. I know you have some trainings coming up in different areas. You want to identify where you have trainings coming up at so we can get the word out?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the cool things, like I mentioned, is we try to come to you, right? We've been to classes where it's done regionally, and people just don't have the money to pay for the logistics and the course and all that. So we try to work with agencies to host our classes in your area. Instead of making the team come to us, we will come to you, talk about your agency or regionally specific legal stuff as we integrate it. And so we have trainings all over the country. We have our next class is going to be in Massachusetts. So if you have an agency near there, that's going to be in November. We're going to be in Essex County. We're also going to be in Iowa in November. There's a lot of different classes. We were lucky. I think about 3 years ago, we did a class there and it really struck a chord with people. And so those agencies that had us come out the first time are having us come out a second time and recertify people. We got a lot of stuff coming up here in Washington State. Quick plug for Washington and Idaho. We are doing a lot of in-service training in our areas. So if you're an agency that doesn't have a person to train your people, reach out to us. We'll come to you individually. And then we got a lot of stuff brewing in Tennessee. We're going to Nashville in December. So that's going to be a lot of fun to do our cell extraction instructor school. We got stuff in California in 26, more stuff in Washington, Georgia, more stuff in Tennessee, Colorado, Michigan, Indiana. If you go to our website, we are close to you. And here's the cool thing. If we're not close to you, call me and we'll come to you. It's really that easy. So we are the easiest company to work with. And, just based on our results, you won't be let down. So.
That's great. I tell you, and you have your website. I believe what's your website again?
It is www.arctac.net. That is ARCTAC.net. And there's all kinds of stuff on there. We have online training as well. If you're an agency that just can't afford to move people from here to there, we do a lot of classes online. We're going to be doing an online use of force class here pretty soon. We do online de-escalation. We did one of those this morning for a specific agency here in Washington. But we also have all of our in-person trainings as well as other services. And so we try to be as well-rounded as possible, but not spreading ourselves too thin. We have experts in each one of those areas. So we deliver the best product possible.
And you also have your podcast, Bold Move Podcast. We recommend everybody go check that out. Great information being put online there. It gives you another chance to meet the instructors and see where they're coming from and their mindset and everything. So on behalf of Corrections Unfiltered, hey, everybody, good podcast, Dave.
Absolutely.
That's my Canadian.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Good
we
info.
really appreciate you guys being on here. And again, please, if you like this content, how can you not like today? If you like this content, hit the like button, hit subscribe. That just lets us know we're doing the right job. It lets us know we have your support. You don't have to pay us when you hit the subscribe button. Someone said that, Charlie. Someone said they had to be paid. They don't have to be paid. But hit that subscribe button. We also got a little bit of merchandise. As you know, we've been wearing it. So we're trying to get in competition with Arc Tactical here. They got their good stuff too. And we got our challenge coins. So just reach out to us on correctionsunfiltered@gmail.com and we can start working out some details to get the stuff to you. So, hey, guys, thanks so much for this podcast. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
for having us.
so much
Thank you
for the
very much.
support.